I think it's gonna be just fine.
I'm excited.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, everybody. We're doing it. We're here to talk about comic books because it's Tuesday.
What we do.
That's what we do on Tuesdays. We talk about all the comic books that are coming out tomorrow,
Mm-hmm.
and it'll be here in store.
Woo!
Jezebel's woo! Thank you for joining us, and we're gonna talk about. Let's start.
Ah, man.
Is this a facsimile cover?
This is. You know what? I love to start the program off with facsimiles.
Let's talk about a facsimile.
And I have to say, this time, I'm aware that it's a facsimile.
Have we had this same one before, or does it just look exactly like the other one?
We didn't talk about this one yet. It might. I don't even remember which one you're talking about.
It looks exactly like this one. That's the one I'm talking about.
The one that looks like this.
Yeah, they all look pretty similar.
Well, this is Marvel Superheroes Secret Wars.
Mm-hmm.
This is the 40th anniversary of this original comic that came out in 1984.
Okay.
And so I actually thought, when I saw that they were doing the facsimile for this, I thought they were just reprinting the first issue just as like for the anniversary. But it actually looks like they're reprinting the entire 12-issue series.
Okay.
So if
do we want that?
You know what? That's tough to say. I've never actually held a very high opinion of Secret Wars, but it is.
That's a show now.
So you know what? So in true Marvel fashion, they've taken this. So this was a very, very successful comic book, and since the name was very popular and recognizable, they've just reused it a million times for several other books and the show. But it all started with this. This is the origin, the original Secret War, if you will.
The most secret of wars.
The most secret of wars. And it was a big deal because it was like a big epic story with all of Marvel's characters. You can see this big splash page has everyone. You know, the Hulk, the Fantastic Four, Thor, the X-Men.
They really went all out.
Yes. And I, even as a kid, I was never too impressed by it because it felt like there's so many characters here.
Yeah.
But it felt like just kind of a flimsy excuse to just put all of their characters into one story and have them fight. And I think
they each other?
Fight. Yeah, they get split up into two, like with villains as well.
Oh, I got you.
And I don't want to like explain too much of the story, but
don't spoil it.
I always thought it was kind of just like really simple and like not that interesting. And so then as an adult, when I discovered that the idea for it came from their dealings with a toy company, that was like
to try to sell more toys.
We want to make toys. We want to make toys of your Marvel characters. Make a comic book that has all of them in it, and then we'll just make toys of that.
Boom.
And so that's what they did. And I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But it does have classic great art by Mike Zeck, who is a great artist from this period. I really do genuinely really like his art. And this series is also popular. It's kind of notable because this was where Spider-Man's black costume, the famous black costume, it came out of this story arc because they're like in space, and that's where the alien symbiote comes from, which then later becomes Venom. So this does, as you do, So although the story itself, it never really impressed me. It certainly has an important place in the Marvel history of their books. Like, it was a huge deal when it came out. And I also think we can kind of blame it for every other crossover that they've done since then, where it's like now, like, it's like this was seen as a radical novelty at the time to do this like one series that just had all the characters in it. And now that's kind of the standard. Like every summer they do an event series that has all the characters in it that have long-lasting ramifications to all the books. It all started here with Marvel Secret Wars. How's that light?
I'm just adjusting the light. I want to make sure.
Am I too pink?
Well, yeah, in real life, yes.
I have rosy cheeks.
Hey, Psychosis, what's up? All right, what's the next book?
So, next book. We're just going to run through...
You can't tell people when I'm adjusting stuff because it ruins the facade that we know what we're doing over here.
The immersion.
The immersion is destroyed.
We're professionals.
It's just the light didn't seem right. It seemed like we were kind of dark.
It's all right.
So I wanted to adjust it. And the buttons on this light are different than the buttons on my other light.
Oh.
So, like, it does, like, a whole...
Yeah. What kind of a Mickey Mouse operation are we running here?
Pushing down makes it brighter? That doesn't make any sense. Anyway.
Well, we'll run through a few of the regular books that are in my
in your
pull list.
Yeah.
I don't want to like flip through them. I don't want to dwell too much on them.
Let's not dwell.
Just a reminder that these books are great.
Dwell, man.
It's kind of killing me. I've said every week these books come out, we're in like a Superman renaissance, and DC has also been putting out like all 3 of their Superman books the same week.
Is that Cowboy Superman?
It is Cowboy Superman.
Okay,
so
I'm kind of into that.
I didn't talk about this because it was like the last page reveal of the previous issue.
Yeah.
But Superman travels back in time and he holds up a train, and you're like, what?
Yeah.
What? You know.
Okay.
And so yeah, this whole issue, Cowboy Superman, he's traveled back in time to like Frontier Days version of Metropolis.
Why does he need a gun?
Because he's trying to blend in. I don't know.
Actually, I don't see a gun. I just see the
he's
belt.
just got the belt. Yeah, there's no gun. He's Superman. He
Well,
wouldn't use a gun
Why does he need a belt?
to hold his pants up.
Well, he wears tights.
Well, not in the past.
His belt says "yeehaw."
Spandex was invented in like 1930 or 1950, I think. It was
But
a relatively.
I'm looking
recent.
at it here, and it looks like he's got the red.
It's got a little bit like chaps.
Well, he's wearing chaps, but he also has the red
underoos.
Underoos.
Well, you know,
Yeah.
they had underwear, you know, in the day.
Sure.
Like,
So he travels back in time, but his clothes don't. So he has to like.
Well, that's the mystery.
Source his own clothes.
You don't know. You don't know like the reason behind it. It just ends with like him traveling back in time under mysterious circumstances,
right.
and then
he has to get clothes.
He's got clothes now. Because he's a cowboy. He's Cowboy Superman. What more do you want, Dan? Honestly, Cowboy Superman sells himself.
I'm trying to put it all together.
I love this cover.
It's great. No, I think it's great.
This is Joshua Williamson's Superman book has been one of my favorite superhero comics to come out this last year. I'm kind of just impressed that he's been able to do such a great job with it and just make it so much like fun and classic superhero stuff, but not feel like he's doing a retro book.
Yeah.
Not as much as like I've talked about the Mark Waid Batman Superman. I think they also do a good job of having like a classic fun feel without feeling like they're trying to imitate a retro book, but it does have more of a Silver Age feel, I guess we can say. But this one, I think we've talked about this a few times. It's come out. This current story arc.
Yeah.
It's tied in with Kingdom Come, which is one of the most famous. I don't want to necessarily say most famous, but it's a pretty big famous story. 4 issues because they were the whole story was fully painted by Alex Ross, and a lot of people like remember that because it's visually distinct.
Yeah.
This is not the art is not by not by Alex Ross. It's by Dan Mora, who is also really great. And this comic is just really cool. I didn't talk about it again in the last issue because it was the final page reveal, but this issue sees the villain trying to brainwash all of the superheroes into leading a war on Apocalypse. And if you don't know Apocalypse, that is the domain of Darkseid, and it's all part of like Jack Kirby's Fourth World. So you know as much of a fan of Jack Kirby as I am.
Oh, sure, yeah.
I'm like all into that. So yeah,
all into it.
These Superman books, I don't have anything to say about the ending of Superman Lost because I haven't read it yet. So when the trade paperback comes out for it, I'll probably talk further on it then. But I am just so happy to have so many good Superman books coming out. It's just.
Not really a Superman fan.
You know what? That's fine. I understand it. I think
kind of boring.
Well, you're wrong, but you know it's okay. We need to get Bramble back. You're fired.
He's a big Superman.
He's a big Superman fan. Yeah.
I mean, he just does. There's like really not much wrong with him. The most interesting thing is his origin, not really what he's doing right now.
Well, you're wrong. I don't have time to explain.
You don't have time to
how
explain
Superman
to me
works.
Why he's good?
He's great. We're moving on. Moving on. I think something that you can appreciate. Army of Darkness Forever.
Yeah, Army of Darkness.
I've been really enjoying this series.
Smart.
I read the Shop Smart, Shop S Smart.
Shop Smart.
This book, it's written by Tony Fleeks, who is one of the co-creators of my current other favorite comic, Local Man.
So Jezebel says, back up, are those 2 books the same? What happens to Village Man Superman?
Village Man Superman.
Let's talk about that. What's Village? What are we referencing?
I assume she's referring to Village People.
Yeah.
Cowboy Superman.
Yeah. No, it's 2 different stories.
It's 2 different comics. Yeah. This one, there's regular Superman. There's World's Finest, which is a Batman Superman team up book, and then Superman Lost, which is a completely different,
whole
comic.
different story. Yeah, like another story altogether.
There's just so many Superman comics coming out.
There's a lot of stuff going on in Superman's life.
And it's
how old is Superman? Does he live forever, effectively, because of his Kryptonian makeup on the Earth?
So yeah, in continuity, yeah, that is correct. He ages slower. That's only an issue in like Elseworlds or like alternate stories, because of course in the current comic books they can never age because they have to always be kind of in the present day. But yeah, you're correct. Which is why it's only explored a few times of like if he was in a relationship with Lois, and
he's got that metabolism.
Yeah,
and
super metabolism.
He just outlives Lois and has to meet somebody else.
But there's even in some stories, there's it's speculated and implied that he's actually could be immortal.
Oh yeah,
I mean he's permanently powered by the yellow sun.
Yeah.
You know? But back to
so what about at night?
Well, he's like a solar battery. He charges. He doesn't expend all of his energy.
So at night he's just like,
he sleeps.
Comes out, he's like, night.
He's a morning person. So I don't have
Army of Darkness.
I don't have a whole lot to say about
this. Following the film,
it's
still, or is it moved on?
And I think like what I said before is that I really like this. Feels like a true sequel to the movie and both of the endings. So the theatrical ending of Army of Darkness ends with him waking up and like going back to S-Mart and just being a schlub again, and he's telling the story and they don't believe him. But there's the filmed ending, the cut ending that was going to be the original ending, was that he wakes up in like the year 3000 and it's a post-apocalyptic wasteland. And so this story follows both versions, and it's trying to seek to connect both versions. So Ash is in the future fighting post-apocalyptic robots, looking for pages of the Necronomicon, but also he's in the present day, and Bad Ash is haunting him,
telling his story.
It's really good. It's one of the better, because there have been a ton of Evil Dead Army of Darkness comics over the years, because it's just an easy license to acquire, and people will buy it and read it. I've read a lot of them, and they're always like fine, but the quality is inconsistent, is what I'll say.
Because whoever can make it.
Exactly, yeah. It's like whoever gets the license can just do whatever, and there's not much of an incentive to tell a great story, because all you have to do is just put the logo on it, the main character. So, but anyway, all of that aside, this book is actually great. It's one of the better Army of Darkness Evil Dead comics that I've read in quite a long time. So I'm very happy with it.
Okay.
Another moving on. Another book that's kind of in my pull. Operation Sunshine. I think I talked about this when issue 3 came out. This was something I missed the first 2 issues, but then I picked it up with issue 3, and I am just really enjoying this. This is the B cover by Glenn Fabry, who's an excellent artist. It's about vampires, if you remember this one.
Werewolves.
So it's like a heist story where these vampires are teaming up. There's like a lot of lore involved in it.
Yeah.
But so there's like, which I kind of like, because that's what people are into vampire stuff about, like all the hierarchy.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of that going on, where this particular vampire is trying to acquire power within his clan and wipe out all his brothers and sisters that hate him. And
the usual stuff.
Yes, standard. They even make a joke about it.
Stuff.
There's like a rogue FBI agent who's like a vampire hunter, and they make a reference where it's like, this is all just like mafia stuff, but for vampires. What do we care?
Right.
But it's really good. The art is by David Rubin, and I absolutely love his cartooning and the colors. Who I guess I should say, who is the colorist? Colors by KJ Diaz. Really beautiful colors. Like, I like the way everything pops. The characters are like just cartoony enough. They got kind of weird, just a look to them. I like the way the vampires look, and they kind of change depending on how they're using their powers. There's a funny character who got his head blown up in a previous issue, and now it's currently growing back.
It's like growing back.
So it's like this weird like stem.
Yeah, his nerves.
His eyeballs. Yeah, really good book. It's written, so I don't remember if I said this when we talked about issue 3. It's written by at least one of the guys from the last podcast on the left, which I'm not familiar. I've heard of it, but I've never listened to it.
It's very popular.
It's very, very popular. And I mostly reference that because, like, Dan, I know you don't think I'm a snob, but every now and then I have to admit I'm a little bit of a snob. So whenever I see a comic book that's like, the selling point is that it's from somebody that's famous for doing something else,
Yeah,
I'm immediately like,
that's a tough sell.
you know, it's a tough sell because it's like, you know, stay out of my comics, you know.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, there's a lot of famous people making comics because it seems kind of like, I don't say it's an easy thing to do. I would say it's very accessible if you have a certain level of wealth.
exactly. It's very accessible for that reason.
Maybe even easier than making a film.
100%,
Yeah.
way easier because you don't even have to invest any money. All you have to do is go to a publisher and be like, I'll attach my name to this.
Yeah.
And they'll say, okay, we'll front the money for it. And, you know, so I'm just a suspicious person when it comes to that. So I saw that and I flipped through it, but David Rubin is a great artist and it looks really good. And so I was like, all right, I think what caught my eye is they had a variant cover from James Stokoe, one of my favorite artists.
Mhm.
And so that was just like, I saw that and I was like, wait a minute, how did I miss this James Stokoe book? And yeah, it's really good. I'm really liking it. And it looks like this is issue 4 that came out this week. Issue 5, it's going to take a few month break, but then they're coming back with issue 5. So I'm glad to see that it's continuing more beyond just like the initial 4 issues, which is sadly so often the case with a lot of comic books.
Just fizzle out.
Yeah, but yeah, good book. I highly recommend it if you're into like vampires and like horror comedy. I guess is because it's lighthearted. It's not like it doesn't take the whole thing too seriously. So it's like fun vampires, kind of like What We Do in the Shadows, like tonally.
Okay, yeah,
but like
yeah.
not so absurd. Like, you know, like because I love What We Do in the Shadows,
Yeah.
but it's just like pure Looney Tunes sometimes
Yeah.
with its comedy.
Yeah.
But it definitely gave me a little bit of vibes of that, of just like having fun with vampires. So yeah, it's
Having fun with
it's good
vampires.
stuff.
Oh, any of us want.
All right, talking about having fun.
Ooh, hey.
So Dan, how big of a fan of you are James Bond?
I like Roger Moore.
Roger Moore's your favorite, really?
Yeah, that's what I grew up with.
You know what? I kind of like.
I'm old.
Are
you T-Doll? You like T-Doll?
You know what? I do like Timothy Dalton. For the longest time, I'm not doing a bit. I really, really liked George Lazenby as James Bond. The one movie that he did. It's a good movie. It's a really good James Bond movie.
This guy. This wise
But
guy.
I mean, if I have to say for like rewatching, I probably like Sean Connery the most because it's just classic. It's all the '60s silliness. But like the Roger Moore movies are a lot of fun.
Yeah,
I
really,
kind of
that was like peak camp.
yeah.
View to a Kill is my favorite one.
I kind of love all
Ridiculous.
James Bond.
James Bond is pretty cool. I mean, they definitely have gone like more like serious like thriller drama with it like recently, and it's okay.
I think Daniel Craig is a good cast, but most of those movies I don't think are very good. Unfortunately,
it's okay. Yeah,
it's okay. That's really what it is. It's
they
like,
stopped
it's okay.
being fun though.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like they're not like fun the way like James Bond is. So this comic, is it
fun?
You know what? It is. And part of that, it's not fun the same way that like I just described Operation Sunshine as fun, like silly, but this book is written by comic book legend Garth Ennis, who's famous for writing the book Preacher. We like Preacher. He wrote one of the probably the most definitive runs on the Punisher at Marvel Comics. He is he's a good writer. I like him a lot. He wrote The Boys, you know. So he's known for having really, I don't necessarily want to say edgy because that sounds so
a distinct vision.
Yeah,
and feel
and a sense of humor.
Yeah,
like he has a real dark sense of humor.
Yeah, the sense of humor is.
But
wild.
it's like he's not afraid to just go anywhere with his stories. So I was like, well, I definitely want to read James Bond written by Garth Ennis.
You got to.
Hooray! Hey, Alex, good to have you here. You're here just in time to listen to Garth Ennis's new James Bond comic. So I read this issue. I really liked it. I don't want to oversell it because I think there's a lot of people that are fans of the Garth Ennis's Punisher. But this, to me, really did feel very similar to Garth Ennis's Punisher. Not necessarily Punisher Max. I think that might be a little too far out there. But his Marvel Knight series, it's not. It's like his run on the Punisher, but a little classier because it's a British James Bond. You know, so he can't go like full on exploitation style where Punisher is strangling people with their own intestines and like torturing people because that's the Punisher's thing. James Bond though. He's just hardcore, like classy super spy.
Yeah, it's classy.
So I really, really like this. Like the art is really good. This by Rafa Labasco, who I'm not familiar with, but it looks solid. I like that. Let's find a good. You can kind of see it on the cover. But I'll find a good panel. I like that. James
He's
Bond.
a classy psychopath. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. He's a classy psychopath. Exactly. He's depicted with the scar on his cheek, which is how the classic depiction of him was in the original Ian Fleming books.
Really?
Like the original novels, he had a telltale scar.
Interesting.
And they took that out in all the movies, so now nobody,
Yeah.
But I like that. This feels like the book version of James Bond, who is a little bit different from the movie, all the movie versions even. But no, this is really good, and I'm a little bothered by it because like I'm not necessarily interested in picking up a new series.
Yeah.
But it's Garth Ennis, and
yeah.
his sense of humor is not for everybody, is how I would describe it. Like he can definitely be a little too, I don't know, a little too everything. Just like he goes to some dark places. He's not afraid to just make fun of whoever he wants. But this book kind of like all of that is reeled in, and it's just, you can really see that he's actually a really excellent storyteller. Like a lot of people will accuse him of just kind of relying on being a shock value
over the top.
the top. But I actually think he is a masterful storyteller, and this book is a perfect example where he's not relying on the extreme shock value of the story like The Boys. This is just him telling a straightforward James Bond story, and it's really, really good. So I'm like super into this.
Nice.
All right, another comic that I decided to check out on a whim.
It's
Cable.
Cable.
I have a soft spot for my boy Cable.
Cable.
Back in the '90s,
Why is it called Cable?
So the reason for that is because it sounds cool.
Okay.
That's pretty much the reason. I think after the fact, there was kind of some like a vague idea attached to it because he's a time traveler, right? So like he's like linked to all these different periods, like a cable wire.
Like cable.
I don't know. I think that's stretching it a little bit. The real reason,
a cable?
like a cable, exactly. The real reason is because it's just a cool sounding name.
Sounds
cool.
Yeah.
And he's like a tough guy, classic movie tough guy.
Cord just didn't have the same ring to it.
Exactly. Cord,
Bungie.
Yeah, Bungie. Yeah. Exactly.
String.
But so this
Wires.
It's wire, just wire.
Just wire.
Single
Actually,
wire.
Wire's not terrible.
Wire's okay. That's the name
right.
of an excellent post-punk band.
Wire. There you go. It's your new comic book character. There you go.
So this is written
Bungie.
by Fabian Nicieza, and he's one of the guys that wrote Cable back in the 90s. I don't think he can be said to be the co-creator because I believe Louise Simonson was writing New Warriors at the time. I know you wouldn't know. I'm just like stretching my memory.
Sounds right.
But Fabian was writing New Mutants for a while with Rob Liefeld, and Fabian also wrote many Cable series in the 90s. And so I was like, okay, I think I've talked about, I'm not super into whatever's happening with the X-Men right now.
Yeah.
But I decided I'll check this out because, it's Cable.
Is that his thing? He just has big guns.
He does. That's kind of his thing. And I do appreciate
stupid big guns,
right? And the reason he has stupid big guns is because that's just what Rob Liefeld liked to draw. And then it kind of became almost like a meta joke where now people that work on draw a Cable, it's like an inside game of like who can draw the most absurd gun,
most ridiculous thing.
that is kind of like an inside gag with the character. So it's like it's become part of the appeal for sure. And I like in this he just straight up sets up. There's even some jokes about the pockets. So like he makes a joke about there was a time I could have taken a Sentinel out with the contents of a single pouch. Because that is, of course, another one of the gags.
Pouches.
Rob Liefeld draws like 1 million pouches on all of his characters. And then there's like a reference here to the pouch basically being like a bag of holding. Like it's like a vortex where you can just pull out this giant gun out of nowhere. Which is like...
Compressed techno-organic mesh.
Yeah.
Wow.
So like there's a little lightheartedness to it that I kind of appreciate. the art is serviceable, but nothing really jumps out at me.
I love
with
the
it.
term serviceable as a descriptor of art.
Yeah. I know. Well,
It's like almost a dig, man. Like
it is a little bit, but at the same time, it
it's
is commercial.
serviceable.
It's commercial art. Like it has
Yeah.
to tell a story, and it does tell the story. But nothing.
it's a Marvel book.
It's a Marvel book. Yeah, nothing about it really jumps out at me. I can't even begin to explain the like lore and continuity with Cable to you, Dan. But there's two Cables. He's a time traveler. So lately, there's two of them. There's his teenage self,
Oh, Teen Cable.
and like the old Cable, which is the regular Cable.
yeah, Cable
And,
Prime.
yeah,
if you will.
if you will, yeah.
Yeah.
So they're like teaming up in this issue for a mission. It's you know what, I might read the next issue. I don't know. It's all pretty typical of a Cable story. I was kind of pleased that it didn't rely too much on the like regular ongoing continuity going on with the X-Men, because as I said, I've not really been following it. I was pleased to see this character back. I know the name Irene Merriweather doesn't mean anything to you,
Nah.
but she was actually in my favorite run on Cable. Oh yeah, Alex says Messiah War was sweet. I didn't read Messiah War, so I kind of haven't.
Why didn't you read it?
I've been off and on the X-Men throughout all of the 2000s. Like my
Yeah.
prime time was the original, the 70s, 80s run. I've reread that many times.
90s.
And the
late
90s.
90s.
And then the 90s got really bad, and then they came back briefly in the early 2000s with Grant Morrison's run and Joss Whedon's run. And even Mike Carey's run after that was also really good. But then I couldn't keep up with it. It was just too much. But this character, Irene Merriweather, I really like her. She's a journalist,
Mhm.
and there was a story arc where, or for like a couple of years, she was kind of the supporting character where she was a journalist who was following Cable around, just like taking information
Mhm.
about all of his like stuff, that his adventures.
Mhm.
And so it worked because she could narrate the comic, but then
Sure.
also it's like her articles that she's writing. And then they make a reference in this to the book, the biography she wrote about Cable, like in universe. So I like the idea that like there's just this biography about Cable out there.
yeah.
Like,
So some lady's just following him around.
yeah. But I was glad to see her back. Like she's a cool character, so that was neat, But yeah, it didn't really excite me too much, like But
Cable.
Cable. I think anybody that's gonna read Cable is probably somebody that's already kind of interested in
Yeah.
Cable.
You're just a Cable fan.
Yeah, and they're out there.
I mean, they keep making Cable books.
They do. He's a cool character. He's got big guns,
He's got big guns.
and he's a tough guy. All right,
tough guy with big guns.
I think we're
That's
moving.
exactly what we need.
We're moving into the nostalgia sector of the podcast.
Serpentor?
This is Serpentor,
Yeah.
which who Serpentor is? Yes, of
Yeah,
course.
yeah.
What am I talking about?
He's that fella.
Yeah. Dan knows GI Joe.
I know G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
I had a lot of G.I. Joe growing up. A lot of G.I. Joe toys.
Oh man, yeah. So I am enjoying the new G.I. Joe series as a lapsed G.I. Joe fan.
Mm-hmm.
I like that this is continuing Larry Hama's original run that he started back in 1982. That's really cool. If you're kind of new to the comics, you might not understand what's going on with the new Transformers and G.I. Joe comics because they're setting up this shared universe.
Well, I'm a fan of great comics, so I know quite a bit about the universe already.
Well, good. I'm
Yeah.
glad you're keeping up on it. But for
Yeah.
those of you that don't know,
Void
like
Rivals.
if you're hearing stuff about this like hot new G.I. Joe series, hot and Transformers and how they're crossing over, this book, the regular G.I. Joe book, isn't a part of that. This is the regular G.I. Joe
Why not?
book because it's continuing Larry Hama's 40-year-old
Totally different
run.
universe.
Totally different universe.
There's too many.
So that is actually a thing I think about a lot.
You guys are awesome. Just in case you forgot.
Well,
Thank you. The why is there so? I don't.
So it doesn't, it bothers me in other media
Mhm.
when there's like
A multiverse.
a multiverse. Like I hate that, but that's not what this is.
Yeah.
There's just different G.I. Joe stories.
Yeah.
And
They're never gonna cross.
They're never going to cross over. And it works for me because there's always been like multiple versions of G.I. Joe. And I'm going to try and get a little like philosophical on you, Dan, for like why something like this works for me with G.I. Joe and not other things. Because there's always been the comic book story, which was originally the Larry Hama story.
Mhm.
And then there was the cartoon where they were just kind of doing whatever they wanted. They didn't.
Yeah. Selling toys.
Yeah.
That's what.
And then even before that, there was just the toys, like
Mhm.
which they all had the cards on the back, you know, their
Yeah.
file info,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that was all written by Larry Hama, but not all of that translated directly into the comic book.
Mhm.
And so like the multiple, I guess you could call it continuities, the multiple versions of GI Joe never really bothered me because there's kind of the other continuity of GI Joe, which is the infinite version that exists in all little kids' heads that
Mhm.
played with it.
Mhm.
And so there was always, in my mind, there was always like three versions of GI Joe. There was the comic book, the cartoon, and then like my version when I would just
Mhm.
play with them because kids are stupid and they don't. You're not going to like follow the story exactly. You're just
No,
playing with
yeah,
your
you're
toys.
just doing your own thing.
So I think that's why it works for me. Of just like here's just a new like we're just doing new GI Joe. It's not connected to anything, and that's why when we talk about this next book, which is the Cobra Commander,
Oh,
that's
oh,
that's why it's important. Like if you're just like like I said, if you heard about this new hot comic book Transformers and GI Joe crossing over,
Mhm.
that's the Cobra Commander and Duke series that we talked about.
Okay.
The regular GI Joe series is the classic
It's doing its
comic
own
book,
thing.
just doing its own thing, continuing Larry Hama's story, and I really like it. It's because I like Larry Hama's original GI Joe comics. They're cool. They're fun. But I do think that without sounding too, I don't like to sound negative, believe it or not.
What?
I know.
I
But-
don't.
but
I don't.
like,
I don't believe it.
I'm really enjoying this GI Joe comic,
Yeah.
but it doesn't completely make me giddy with excitement the way the new the Cobra Commander Duke and Transformers
Mhm.
comics have. So I'm mostly just talking about this just to lay that out there, the distinction between the two.
Yeah.
I like this new GI Joe. If you're a longtime fan of GI Joe, you'll enjoy reading the original series, and
Yeah.
I really respect too that Image Comics is doing this way, where they've got their new universe that they're setting up. It's
Mhm.
called the Energon universe,
Mhm.
but they're still letting Larry Hama continue to do his comic
Yeah.
book. I mean, as long as their sales are there, why not? I mean, why not sell 2 or 3 GI Joe comics
Yeah.
instead of one?
I mean,
you
it's
know?
working on you.
It really is. It absolutely is.
Let's ask a serious question though, right
Okay.
now.
Okay.
As you know,
Mhm.
in the World War II Nazi times, Hugo Boss designed all the uniforms,
Hmm.
and
As we know.
I'm just gonna say, some sharp-looking uniforms. Don't agree with the ideology, but these guys know how to dress. Check
Yeah.
this guy out.
Man, sure.
Who is dressing Cobra? Do they address this in the comic book?
So I'm glad you asked that because they didn't address that at all. But so I don't want to like say too much about this because I don't want to like
Mhm.
give too many spoilers for
Yeah.
this comic because there is
Serving looks. Yeah, I mean, look at this dude.
yeah
Like
yeah
that's the stance of a man
he's
that
got
knows
he's
that
got
they look good.
confidence. He knows
Yeah,
he looks
there's
good.
confidence right there.
So first of all, I want to point out this is
Sharp
the
lines.
variant cover by David Aya, who is a
Mhm.
good artist that I really like,
Mhm.
and I picked this cover
Mhm.
over the regular cover. The
Mhm.
regular cover is cool, but this is just such a sharp. I love this picture
the
of Cobra Commander.
simplicity of it,
Yeah,
and the style where it's like all very like broken down to simple like
Mhm.
lines and shading.
yep. I mean, the composition is
Yeah.
beautiful. Like all this negative space.
Mm-hmm.
You got this machinery, which is
Mhm.
very Jack Kirby, by the way. Just
Oh, very Jack Kirby
the
style.
Kirby dots is what we refer
Oh,
to it,
Kirby
and then like
dots.
Kirby machinery. And it's I don't know how much of that was like why that was intended, but it really
Cobra!
yeah exactly. So well,
I'm gonna tell you something about
oh,
this.
yeah,
though,
yeah, okay.
Before you finish with the artwork,
yes,
this style of like creating a sort of metallic look without metallics,
Mhm.
non-metal metallics, it's a very valid miniature painting sort of technique, and this is like a great study, I would say, if you're trying to do that kind of technique.
really.
Yes, absolutely. Non-metal metallics is a sort of a style of painting where you're getting this look, but you're
Mhm.
not using any actual metallic paint. So something like this, which obviously this is a cylinder, you kind of like
Mhm.
see the cylinder, you understand how like light would reflect and how the shadow would be underneath, and you paint that on like the actual
Oh, I see.
shaped
Like
surfaces
when you're
of a miniature.
so like your Warhammer 40K
Mhm,
miniature,
sure.
like the gun, you would paint it like gray. You would paint the black on the
Yes,
shadow,
exactly.
and then like the little line.
Yep,
Oh,
yep,
okay.
yep. So
okay.
that's a really, and this is like, I mean, if you're looking for that sort of vibe, like that's why I really like this, because it nails that sort of non-metal metallic
yeah.
look.
Oh, I don't know if I've seen at least not
I'll
in the
show you.
store. I haven't seen it.
I'll show
in
you
Army.
some.
I like it. I like that, like, because that to me that just is like classic comic book look,
Yeah,
which is
and
why I would like it.
that's like a legit thing too, like the cell shaded look that like a
Mhm.
lot of what's the video game that was very popular?
Jet
Somebody
Set Radio,
could be one of
it's
them.
one of
There's
them.
like a post-apocalyptic one. Somebody in the chat can tell me, but
Fallout.
Maybe it's Fallout, but there's one like the cell shaded look. People are doing that on miniatures as well.
Mhm.
But I like the idea that like there's a comic book. The comic books can inform a different
Yeah.
medium altogether, and I think that's
Mhm.
really important.
That is cool.
And something like this really, for me, grabs my attention more because that I can break down in my mind and go, "Ooh, I could do that on a miniature." That's
Right,
fun.
right. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't think about it that way,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's pretty neat. I'm glad we were able to have this
Yeah.
meeting of
Something.
art, meeting of whatever.
Something.
So I'm just gonna blow up the bombshell like
Well,
this.
are you gonna spoil it?
I'm not gonna spoil
Don't
everything.
spoil it.
Well, I don't want to spoil it, but like I think people need to know. Like
Cobra.
so, because I just talked about how there's multiple versions of GI Joe,
Yeah.
and so one of the things that's the most notable.
Officially too.
There's officially two,
And then the one that's in
and
your
then
head.
and then the one that's in my head. That's actually the most official one.
That's the
My-
one that means the most.
I think the kids refer to it as headcanon.
Mhm.
Cobra. So yes. So you know what's cooler than saying Cobra?
Mm.
It's Cobra La.
Oh
think
yeah, that's
you
like their
remember
weirdo.
Cobra la 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 la.
Yeah, it's like their spot.
So that was a bombshell. Like with this issue, they're incorporating all the Cobra Law stuff
Mhm.
into the origin, and it is just like if you flip through this book, if you pull it over the shelf, you're going to see a lot of stuff. So I'm not going to flip too much into
You
it,
don't wanna flip
but
too
like
much.
if
It looks awesome.
it looks so good. And I'm so excited. I was giddy when I was reading it because, as I think we even talked about this on a
Mhm.
previous podcast
Mhm.
stream.
It's a stream.
A previous stream.
All right, we're done.
Game over, man. So, like the 1987, 88 movie, the
Yeah.
animated movie,
Yeah.
has all the weird Cobra Law stuff. And
Yeah, like the
it
weird
was
crustacean armor and stuff like
so
that.
bizarre. Like it didn't really mesh with the previous
No,
like,
not
versions
at all.
of GI Joe.
Not at all.
But as a kid, I remember thinking like, this is weird.
Yeah.
But I had all the toys.
Oh no, they're great.
Globulus,
Globulus.
the big snake guy,
Yep.
Nemesis Enforcer.
Yep.
Yeah, I watched that movie.
They're excellent. Yeah,
so
no,
much.
they're excellent.
And
That whole vibe is like, this organic situation.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. And so I love that with this new shared universe, again, with Transformers and now G.I. Joe,
Mhm.
I love that they're incorporating this. It works so perfectly as part of a shared universe because, like, you have the Transformers come from space and it's all like metal technology, all
Mhm.
science and
Mhm.
inorganic material. And then Cobra La is all organic. Like, they
Mhm.
have all their sciences based off organic. So it immediately sets up this beautiful dichotomy
Mhm.
that it serves as a motivation for Cobra Commander
Yeah.
for like what he's doing because
Mhm.
he's a member of Cobra La.
Yeah.
And so I also love a friend of mine pointed this out to me some months ago, but like I like the Cobra La stuff because I really like the idea of the villains of like Cobra actually being snake people
Mhm.
that are hiding amongst us.
Yeah,
like
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 legit
all
snake
of our
people.
politicians.
Yeah.
You know,
Lizard man.
so it's like proof that like they're out there and like GI Joe neets to fight them.
I know. We
So-
gotta do something about this.
Yeah, do something about these lizard people.
They don't like it in the Midwest.
No, they don't. But I mean, I think I said the same thing when I talked about Duke that came out a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
I was expecting to really like it,
Mhm.
and I'm still shocked at how much I loved it. Like I'm so hyped on GI Joe Transformers right now. It's kind of
But
ridiculous.
G.I. Joe's like one of your things.
It was my
though.
thing. I got
Yeah,
so
yeah.
many GI Joes as a kid.
Yeah.
And now like Transformers, I like Transformers, but it wasn't really my thing the way GI
Right.
Joe was.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I was like, I was going into GI Joe being like, I'm ready for it, and it's still just blowing me away with how, like, it gets over the absurdity of just being about toys,
Mhm.
and also it not in a way where it feels like they're embarrassed to be making a GI Joe comic, because that's a vibe I get sometimes from some licensed stuff where it's like they try to. It's actually very very common in like all like the current Marvel movies where they constantly have to make sarcastic jokes about how silly everything
Yeah.
is instead of just embracing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Transformers. Alex is right. New favorite series. Mine too. I mean, I love Daniel Warren Johnson, but still, it's amazing. And if you're following Transformers, let me just say, you need to pick up Cobra Commander because it directly ties into a lot of the stuff that's been in the background of Transformers and a lot of the build up and the excitement. So man, I'm like, it's so good, and it works well as a shared universe. I really like the way they've kind of put it together into this perfect comic booky type of universe that kind of justifies why the Transformers are transforming into cards, because they are actually trying to hide among us. Why Cobra is this all-powerful terrorist organization. Like, they're not just bad guys that want to rule the world. They have like some deeper motivations with this like secret snake society that lives underground. And why G.I. Joe would be able to do like what they can do with like their super weapons and carte blanche from the government, because it's like they're fighting a secret war. You know, it's like everything about it is just so cool. Like
they've matured the story a little bit.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's
so
great.
I do think that like you don't have to be a kid who likes playing with G.I. Joe still in your 40s to enjoy this G.I. Joe comic. I think it's just excellent, excellent, mature comic book storytelling. Yeah.
But what about Void Rivals? Where is that?
I think I said all I have to say about Void Rivals when we talked about issue 6. We'll see when the next issue comes out. Maybe, I don't know. I've already kind of forgotten everything that happened. I'll be honest. It's certainly not hyping me up the way Transformers and G.I. Joe does. I can tell you that right now. Our Bones Dust, talking about like cool sci-fi and weird stuff. We talked about issue 1 when it came out. If you missed issue 1, highly recommend this book. This book is so cool. It's just like a straight post-apocalyptic sci-fi where Earth is just this destroyed wasteland, just a desert of cars.
The art
is
excellent.
Beautiful. Like, it's so good. Just perfectly captures the vibe of this weird, dusty desert nonsense. But I also really love the storytelling because it just like sprinkles in stuff where it never over explains what's happening.
Bones Dust #1 was sweet. The art is phenomenal.
It's so good. You got it right, man. Alex, that Alex guy's got some good taste. I wonder who's been hooking him up with all those cool comic books that he loves.
It's something about this sort of like pastel kind of like color scheme.
The whole color palette, it's very dry. Like
it works
so well. Like it's down satellite, just like that's just part of the landscape.
It's not a different color; it's the same as everything.
It's so cool. And you have this like weird, like super futuristic robot that almost looks kind of organic in the way it moves. That's investigating things. We get a little bit more development of what this character is doing and like who this like gang of cannibals that are chasing that kid. It's like so like perfect. Like simple storytelling. There's every time like the characters interact, you get just like a little piece of like what's going on in the greater world. But they never like I said, they don't explain anything really. Like there's no narration. It's all told just the dialogue and the visuals, and it's just done expertly.
Organic mech aliens.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the best kind of alien, honestly.
They're the creepiest for sure.
It is really creepy. Yeah, something that's like not biological, moving in a biological way.
Creepy. So there was a moment in this issue, Our Bones Dust 2, that I did not see coming. So I'm curious to see like where the story goes. I think it's a 4-issue series. So
I gotta pick that up because I just like the way it looks.
You should absolutely do it.
Did I buy issue? I don't think I bought issue 1.
We'll have to check.
I'm a fool.
Yeah. Well, even after we
even after we
talked
about
it on the podcast.
Yeah.
The stream. We highlighted it on the stream.
It's a string.
I'm sorry. I caught myself. But yeah, Our Bones Dust. Excellent comic. Definitely check it out.
Get it.
All right, now.
Oh, hey.
We always like to end the show with a book a friend on a high note, a book that a coworker picks out for us. And this week, nobody knew to pick anything. So I asked our dear friend and coworker Celeste if she knew what this book was, and she said she saw the movie. And I asked her, "What did she think? What did you think about the movie?" And she said, "I don't know. It's not bad, but not good."
I think she said it was a waste of time.
She said it was a waste of time. Well, I think not bad, but not good kind of perfectly describes the average Zack Snyder film.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't want to make too many enemies.
I've
here,
heard
but,
so many bad things about Rebel Moon, and I was very excited when I saw the preview for it. But that's what the preview is supposed to do.
right.
It gets you hyped up for the film. It sort of gives you a gist of the universe. And I was like, oh, cool. Like, I love the sci-fi universe.
Right.
I might get down with that. And I started reading review and bad review, hearing from friends. And I was like, oh, and it's almost one of these things now where I almost have to watch it just to see how terrible it is for myself.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe I'll like love it. Maybe what's wrong with you guys?
I've heard some people have told me that they enjoyed it. Like it's not a perfect movie, but like the neat stuff in it is neat. And I've also heard people say that like obviously everybody's making a lot of the obvious Star Wars connections, but also there's a lot of Warhammer 40K stuff in there apparently. Like you can tell like there's some Warhammer influence.
Yeah.
So I decided, like, let's take a look at this book.
Let's take a look at it.
I guess for the record, I have not seen the movie.
Oh.
So I went into this comic not knowing anything about it.
Yeah.
And the story by Zack
You
Snyder.
went in blind.
I went in totally blind. It's written by Mags Visaggio, art by Clark Bent. And I read about, let's see, how many pages is this? I think it feels longer. It might be a standard 22-page story. I don't know. I read about half of it before I got bored and just kind of stopped.
Oh boy,
that's
kind of a bad sign.
That's not a great sign.
It's not good.
So there's just like there's a lot of text on these pages where it's all like it's trying really hard to be. I think this is just my opinion, of course, but I think it's trying really hard to be like a novel where they're like detailing this lore and kind of the like situation, but it's from a perspective, like the first person perspective of the character explaining it. And I just got really bored.
That's
I do not care about, like, admittedly, when you read as many comics as me, like, I have a low tolerance for a lot of stuff where I'm just like, yeah, there's a lot of text on this page. And, it's kind of funny that we're talking about this right after talking about Our Bones Dust, because I think Our Bones Dust is so, like, the storytelling is so clean and clear and succinct, and it's all told in the visuals and the dialogue. And don't get me wrong, I really like Too Slow to Be Released as individual issues. I'm not sure what you're referring to, Rebel Moon. It is a series, yeah.
Do you know how many issues in the series?
I don't know. I think probably 4. That's 3 or 4. That's the standard.
Yeah.
But like, I'm not somebody who like
maybe they're stretching it out a little too much.
Oh, that could be too. Yeah.
4 to 6 issue run.
It's like I actually really like having like. I liked reading a comic book. I don't like a lot of people will complain about too much text on the page, like too much captions. Like I just want to look at the pictures. I don't want to read the words. I actually like a nice, like, hefty book that takes more than 5 minutes to read just from flipping through it.
Yeah.
But like this, I really couldn't get into it. There's a lot of lore into it, like explaining like some royal family, and it just was doing absolutely nothing to pull me in. I don't hate the art. I think the art is fine, but again, similar to that Cable book, like didn't really move me. And a lot of times, like when you're an old guy like me, you got to just go with your gut on a lot of stuff. I don't have time to waste reading like books that
you got a few days
I'm
left.
not passionate about. Exactly. I gotta save all of my time, what little I have left, for reading G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
Because that's what definitely is something that moves me like on a deep personal level for a variety of reasons. And so I don't know. I think if you liked the movie Rebel Moon, you might want to take a peek at this. It's I can't say like I haven't seen the movie, so I don't know if it's fleshing out stuff in the movie or if it's a sequel or if it's a prequel.
Or if it's just the movie,
or if it's just the movie in comic book form. I honestly have no idea, and it doesn't do anything to indicate like what it is. I imagine it's a tie-in. Like it's about the House of Blood Axe, who I assume are characters in the movie. But
also from 40K, as a matter of fact.
You know what? There you go. So there's some 40K stuff.
It's a clan of orcs, in case you guys were wondering.
Trying to get the
Blood Axe.
Yeah,
it's kind of.
It's a little this glossy cover.
Trust us, it's there.
Anyway, I think that's all I have to say. I'm sorry, all you Snyder Bros. I couldn't finish it. Not even like, but I want to underline. I want to stress. It's not that I couldn't finish it because I thought it was terrible. Like a lot of books I think are terrible. we don't talk about them on the stream because I'm
Yeah.
not here to talk about like bad books.
Maybe we should talk about some bad books.
I prefer, like, again, this is like my
Tell me in
time.
chat. No, like, yeah, I'll read the bad ones. I don't care.
Okay. We'll start dividing up duties. You can read
I'll be
the
like, yeah, I agree. This was bad.
right. I just couldn't really get into this at all, and that's why I was just like, you know what,
Yeah.
I only got so much time in the day to read books, and 3 Superman books came out today, so
Yeah, that's a lot
I'm
of
reading
Superman.
those. I'm sorry, you know.
It's like spent so much time world building, it didn't tell you any story whatsoever.
I think that was part of it. Like, I didn't feel like there was no character to really get attached to, even though ostensibly there was one that's kind of narrating it, but it was all just a lot of stuff going on.
What's the book that is the Lord of the Rings lore, the Cimarron?
The Silmarillion.
Silmarillion?
Yeah.
Is it like that?
It's maybe not as bad as the Silmarillion. You know, I haven't read the Silmarillion, but I one time did try to listen to it on tape.
Wow.
No joke. I was like,
that was a long time ago.
Yeah, it was actually
you said tape.
it was actually CD, but it was
Oh.
still when they were calling it books on tape, but
That's
it was
also
just
still old.
I know. It's nowadays we just say audiobook.
Yeah, I got it on Spotify or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
No, it was like a box of like 12 CDs.
Oh my god.
And I because each CD could only hold like 45 minutes of audio.
Yeah.
And so I like put
That's
the first
funny.
one in, and I listened to it for like halfway, like 20 minutes, and I like
Tried to read it 3 or 4 times.
Right, yeah.
That's a ton.
I literally fell asleep like listening to it. Like
Yeah.
it just lulled me to sleep.
It's good if you can't sleep, then put that on.
It's pretty good, yeah.
or
yeah.
read Rebel Moon.
or
the other.
or read Rebel Moon.
Wow, that is a very telling, indictment of this book. If you need to fall asleep, read the Rebel Moon comic. Jeez.
I'm sure. If you like the movie, and I know you're out there. I know there are people
Somebody
that like
has
the movie.
liked it.
I'm
gonna watch. I'll tell you.
I've talked to people in the shop that said they like it, like in the store, like customers have come in, and I've always smiled politely and said, "I'm very happy for you."
glad you
enjoyed
enjoyed.
things.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Wow. Is that all the books? Is
That's
that the last
that's all
one?
the books. That's the last one.
We did it.
Boom.
That's another Tuesday comic book preview in the books.
Yeah.
And thanks for watching live. And if you're watching us on YouTube, thanks for watching the replay on YouTube.
Yeah.
We appreciate that. Tell all your friends about us because we're awesome.
Yeah,
We're
right.
amazing.
We just like have fun and goof off on here, and it's more fun with more people derailing the conversation.
Yeah, it's actually, we love having everybody in chat. So we thank you for that. Watch us live if you can. And tomorrow, go ahead and grab your comic books here, Fantasy Books and Games. And if you don't get them here, get them somewhere. There's something there for everybody. It's not just superheroes.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I found out.
Yeah.
And we'll see you guys next Tuesday.
Bye.
Bye.